Most people believe a mirror is harmless, just glass and reflection. But what if I told you that some mirrors aren't showing you at all? They're showing something watching you back. This is the paradox few dare to face. The ordinary becomes the occult, and a simple glance can turn into a forbidden ritual. In fact, the practice known as the mirror ritual that opens an astral trapdoor, "Never try this alone," has been whispered about for centuries in hidden traditions, and not without reason. It's one of those secrets that sounds like superstition, until you try it and realize the reflection no longer belongs to you. Here's the uncomfortable truth. What we think of as just a reflection might actually be a mirror gateway, an astral portal that bends reality. Sounds absurd, right? Yet across cultures, from shamans to mystics to secret orders, the same warning echoes. Mirrors drink more than light. They drink attention, focus, and sometimes even the soul. That's why those who attempt this mystical ritual often find themselves facing consequences they never expected. Shadows that move on their own, whispers in the night, or a reflection that refuses to blink when they do. And here's the catch. People don't attempt this mirror ritual because they're reckless. They attempt it because it promises something irresistible. Forbidden knowledge, a glimpse into the astral plane, secrets hidden from ordinary eyes. It's the ultimate contradiction. The danger is real, but so is the reward, which begs the questions: if a simple mirror can open a trapdoor into the unseen, what exactly lies waiting for those bold or foolish enough to step through? What if, one night, while standing before a mirror, you realized that what stares back is not your reflection, but something older, darker, and infinitely more patient? That haunting premise forms the foundation of the so-called mirror ritual, a forbidden ritual whispered about in hidden circles of mystical rituals. To most, a mirror is nothing more than polished glass, but for those who know the astral plane's secrets, it can transform into a mirror gateway, an astral trapdoor disguised as an ordinary surface. Think of it like walking down the street and suddenly realizing the pavement beneath you is a thin sheet of ice. It looks safe, but one wrong step and you're pulled under. This is the very nature of mirror magic, an occult initiation where reflection stops being about appearance and becomes about presence. The question isn't just, what do you see, but who or what sees you back? Throughout history, people have played with mirrors, treating them as harmless vanity tools. Yet countless reports describe haunted mirrors, where shadow beings flicker in the glass even when the room is empty. It's easy to dismiss these as tricks of the light or tired eyes, but the persistence of these accounts tells another story. Those who engage in occult rituals know that mirrors act as more than reflective surfaces. They're demonic portals when charged through ritual gone wrong. Have you ever noticed how staring into your own eyes in a mirror for too long creates a strange distortion, almost as if your face doesn't belong to you anymore? That's not just imagination. It's the first taste of the mirror portal pulling you into its realm. Now here's where things become unsettling. A mirror ritual isn't simply about seeing, it's about being seen. Think about it. In astral projection dangers, people often talk about leaving their body and floating freely, but few discuss what happens when astral entities notice them wandering. A mirror acts as a beacon, an astral travel warning sign that flashes on the other side, announcing, here is someone trying to step through. And once the invitation is made, there's no guarantee you control who or what accepts it. The reflection might start by shifting subtly, eyes blinking out of sync, but soon you may realize the glass is no longer reflecting you at all. It reflects a shadow you've never owned. Imagine a young seeker, curious about forbidden knowledge, lighting a single candle and standing before the mirror at midnight. At first, nothing happens. But then, the flame bends strangely, as if pulled toward the glass, and their reflection begins to smile independently. That's the trap, the mirror gateway feeding back not your face, but a version of you stitched together by astral possession. It doesn't take much, just 10 minutes of focused gaze, to fall into what occult symbolism calls the second gaze, where the reflection becomes alive. One step further, and you're not looking at yourself anymore. You're standing before a forbidden ritual, one that never ends once it begins. When I was first told of this, I laughed. I thought, come on, a mirror can't hurt anyone. But then I tried an experiment, staring into a mirror in complete silence, no distractions. After a few minutes, the reflection blurred, my eyes grew heavy, and it felt like the glass itself was breathing. That night, I dreamed of shadow beings crowding behind me, whispering, tugging, promising to show me astral plane secrets I wasn't ready for. It was as if the haunted mirror had followed me into sleep. Some say that's when the mirror ritual truly begins, not during the practice itself, but in the echoes it plants in your subconscious. This is why so many stories of ritual gone wrong begin with something innocent. A child playing Bloody Mary, a teenager daring a friend to look into a mirror in the dark. Yet behind those games lies an occult initiation in disguise. The child doesn't know they're opening a demonic portal, yet the mechanics are identical. Gaze, focus, silence, and belief. Each of these elements primes the mirror gateway. The astral possession that follows may not happen instantly, but it leaves its mark. Nightmares, distortions, a sense of being watched. Isn't it curious how many cultures tell children not to stare too long into mirrors? Those warnings were not arbitrary. They were survival manuals dressed up as folklore. The reflection that is not yours isn't a metaphor, it's a phenomenon. When the mirror stops being glass and becomes a doorway, you realize you're standing before an astral trapdoor disguised as your own face. What if that shadow in the glass isn't you, but the watcher who's been waiting for centuries? This is where the opening enigma deepens. The reflection doesn't lie, it reveals, but reveal what to exactly? That's the question that leads us to the next hidden layer. The understanding that ancient civilizations already knew these secrets, long before we pretended mirrors were just vanity tools. Across forgotten civilizations, mirrors were never just reflective surfaces. To the Aztecs, the obsidian mirror was a sacred tool. Priests gazed into its dark depth to communicate with Tezcatlipoca, the smoking mirror god who ruled fate and illusion. What looked like polished stone was actually a mirror gateway, a mystical ritual capable of opening an astral trapdoor into realms hidden from ordinary sight. These practices weren't entertainment, they were dangerous occult rituals that came with their own astral travel warnings. The obsidian's black surface didn't show faces, it revealed shadow beings, astral entities lurking behind the veil. Imagine standing before one of those mirrors, your reflection dissolving into smoke, as if the glass itself were alive. Even then, people understood what we've forgotten today. Mirrors carry occult symbolism far beyond vanity. In ancient China, mirrors were said to trap wandering souls, binding them so they couldn't roam freely. This belief shaped architecture. Mirrors were placed strategically to repel demonic portals and keep haunted mirrors from swallowing the energy of a household. Some texts warned that if a mirror cracked inside a home, it wasn't just bad luck. It meant a forbidden ritual had been unknowingly activated. The glass no longer served as protection, but as a mirror portal, inviting astral entities in. Even now, some traditional Chinese households avoid placing mirrors opposite beds, fearing astral projection dangers at night. Think about that. A simple piece of furniture placement becomes a safeguard against astral possession. These practices weren't superstition, they were survival tactics encoded in culture. Medieval Europe wasn't much different, though its language was more cloaked in the vocabulary of the church. Polished metals, bronze or silver discs, were inscribed with occult symbolism, then used by magicians and priests to summon spirits. To outsiders, it was alchemy or nonsense. To initiates, it was an occult initiation where the mirror magic became a demonic portal. Grimoire after grimoire, from obscure manuscripts to the famous Picatrix, whispered instructions: light the candle, chant the words, gaze into the glass, until the reflection moves on its own. Many dismissed these texts as curiosities, yet those who tried them often described ritual gone wrong, astral entities answering when no prayer was spoken. Once again, the pattern emerges. The mirror as an astral trapdoor, a forbidden knowledge hidden in plain sight. Consider the story of John Dee, the Elizabethan magician and advisor to Queen Elizabeth IV. He famously used a black obsidian mirror, brought from Mexico, to contact angelic and demonic beings through mystical rituals. His scrying sessions weren't random games. They were mirror rituals that acted as astral gateways. Some said Dee's haunted mirror whispered answers. Others claimed it drained him, leaving him haunted by shadow beings. Even centuries later, his mirror is displayed in museums, where visitors report unease, chills, and even flickering shadows in photographs. Why would a lifeless stone provoke such reactions if not for the astral plane secrets woven into its surface? Perhaps the real danger isn't what Dee saw, but what still sees us when we dare to look. These beliefs spread far and wide, appearing in African, Middle Eastern, and shamanic traditions. Mirrors, or any reflective surface, even water, were treated as liminal thresholds. Shamans gazed into bowls of water not to see themselves, but to fall through the mirror gateway into spirit worlds. The reflection was never personal. It was a stage where astral entities played their games. To them, a ritual gone wrong meant not death, but possession, where shadow beings attached themselves like leeches. Many shamans insisted on protective chants, herbs, or symbols carved into the mirror's edge, because without them, the mirror portal could not be trusted. Even then, stories persisted of apprentices lost, unable to return from astral travel. These warnings echo loudly for anyone tempted by modern experiments in mirror magic. What's fascinating is how consistent these accounts are, despite spanning cultures that never communicated directly. From Aztec priests to medieval magicians, from Chinese philosophers to tribal shamans, all warned of the same phenomenon. Mirrors drink more than light. They drink attention, focus, and ultimately the gaze itself, turning it into an offering. Isn't it striking that different civilizations describe the mirror not as glass, but as a hungry mouth? The haunted mirror feeds on human curiosity, pulling seekers into a ritual gone wrong if they're not cautious. And still, the allure persists. After all, who wouldn't want forbidden knowledge, even at the risk of astral possession? That temptation has never gone away. It has only changed costumes. Think about it. Why do we still cover mirrors during funerals in many cultures? It's not just symbolism, it's a survival instinct. Ancient wisdom whispers that when a soul is departing, the mirror gateway might lure it into a demonic portal, trapping it instead of letting it ascend. These occult rituals weren't optional. They were life and death practices disguised as tradition. Every culture, in its own way, left us clues. Mirrors are more than glass. They're astral trapdoors that test our will. And if history shows us anything, it's that when seekers ignore these astral travel warnings, the reflection they meet is not their own. Which begs the question, if our ancestors knew this so well, what deeper mechanics of reflection were they trying to protect us from? When you stand before a mirror, it feels so simple. Glass, light, reflection. But esoterically, that reflection is far from neutral. It's said that every mirror creates an energetic fold, a subtle bending of space where the astral body can slip loose from the physical shell. This is why a mirror ritual isn't just vanity turned occult. It's an astral trapdoor, a delicate hinge between two realities. The glass doesn't merely echo your appearance. It vibrates with your consciousness, amplifying it like a resonant chamber. And here's the kicker. Once the echo grows strong enough, it becomes independent, reflecting not you, but something that can act on its own. That's where astral projection dangers begin, when the reflection stops being obedient. Imagine dropping a stone in a still pond. The ripples spread outward, bouncing off the edges, returning in complex patterns. A mirror works in a similar way, except the ripples aren't water, they're vibrations of thought and soul. When you stare into a haunted mirror long enough, you're not just seeing your face. You're staring into the interference patterns of your own consciousness. That's why shadow beings often appear first as flickers, distortions in the reflection, before they become full astral entities. The mirror gateway bends reality like a funhouse mirror, except the warping isn't visual, it's spiritual. What you're seeing is a feedback loop, and loops have a nasty habit of spiraling out of control. Some occult initiations describe this process with chilling precision. They claim the mirror acts as an amplifier, turning a person's inner state into an outer projection. Joy, fear, anger, it doesn't matter. The reflection will magnify it. This is why so many mystical rituals warn against gazing into the glass when you're emotionally unstable. A ritual gone wrong doesn't start with demons clawing through. It begins when your own turmoil attracts astral possession. Think of it like tuning a radio. If your frequency is chaotic, you'll pick up interference, whispers from astral entities you didn't mean to contact. That's not superstition. It's mechanics of the astral plane secrets. There are personal accounts that illustrate this vividly. One practitioner described how, during a forbidden ritual, the mirror reflection began moving before he did. At first, it raised its hand a second late, like lag in a video call. But then it began to act independently, blinking when his eyes were open, smirking when his lips were still. That's when he realized the mirror magic had created a second presence, an echo strong enough to detach. Was it him, or was it a shadow mimicking him? That's the existential dread of a demonic portal. You never know if what's on the other side is you, or something that wants to be you. If you've ever practiced lucid dreaming or light astral travel, you know how fragile the boundary between states can be. The mirror amplifies that fragility. One wrong focus, and you tumble into the astral plane like falling through thin ice. That's why ancient warnings emphasized candles, silence, midnight. The configuration isn't superstition, it's calibration. A mirror ritual is less about what you do with your hands and more about how your mind vibrates. And that vibration, once echoed, becomes a doorway. The danger is not in stepping through, but in realizing that once the trapdoor opens, you may not be the only one crossing. Science, of course, scoffs at this. Physicists will say a mirror only reflects photons. Psychologists will reduce haunted mirrors to tricks of perception. Yet, isn't it strange that so many cultures, across centuries, described the same mirror portal mechanics without ever meeting each other? They didn't talk about photons. They spoke of souls slipping, shadows moving, reflections bending reality. These weren't isolated hallucinations. They were repeatable phenomena that pointed to occult symbolism embedded in mirrors themselves. And while science explains the how, it ignores the why. Why does the reflection distort identity, if not because it reflects something deeper than flesh? Here's the unsettling truth. The reflection in a mirror isn't static. It lives, it breathes, it bends with you. That bend is the astral fold, a trapdoor waiting to be opened. And once opened, the rules of ordinary reality no longer apply. Mirrors stop being mirrors. They become instruments of mystical rituals, amplifying presence into portals. If the mechanics of reflection are this dangerous, then what happens when someone deliberately configures a ritual to push beyond? What new layers of the astral plane might they fall into when the glass stops showing their face altogether? That's the threshold we need to explore next. Every ritual has its architecture, and the mirror ritual is no different. The placement of a mirror is never random. It is aligned like a compass needle pointing into the unseen. Candles are set not just for light, but for resonance. Their flames flicker as if feeding the mirror gateway. Midnight is the chosen hour, not because of superstition, but because silence thickens, making the astral plane's secrets easier to access. Practitioners insist on solitude, for even the presence of another person can disrupt the delicate balance. When these conditions align, the mirror ceases to be glass. It becomes an astral trapdoor, its surface quivering with the weight of forbidden knowledge. This is the moment when the reflection begins to bend, warning that a forbidden ritual is underway. Think of it like tuning an old radio. If you adjust the dial even slightly, you'll catch static. But tune it perfectly, and suddenly a voice appears from nowhere. The ritual configuration works the same way. The placement of candles, the stillness of the room, even the rhythm of your breathing, all fine-tune the mirror portal. Miss a step, and you risk a ritual gone wrong, where instead of clarity, you invite shadow beings eager to slip through. That's why ancient grimoires described elaborate diagrams for mystical rituals. Not for decoration, but calibration. Every detail, from the wax dripping down a candle to the angle of the mirror, was part of a cosmic equation. Now imagine a seeker who ignores these rules. They light candles but keep music playing, or they whisper instead of keeping silence. To them, it feels harmless. But the haunted mirror doesn't play by human rules. It responds to vibrations, not intentions. Without the correct configuration, what emerges is not insight, but interference. The reflection becomes a demonic portal where astral entities crawl through, their presence disguised as distortions of your own face. That's the true danger of the trapdoor within the glass. It doesn't need your permission to open once the calibration is off. The mirror magic then takes control, dragging the seeker into astral projection dangers they never meant to face. Those who practice seriously often describe the ritual as a descent rather than an ascent. Unlike meditation, where one rises into light, the mirror pulls downward, into density, into shadow. That's why many traditions call it a trapdoor. It's not an elevator to heaven, but a hatch into the basement of existence. Here, shadow beings wait in silence, feeding on fear and curiosity. Some practitioners report a chilling moment when the reflection no longer matches the body's movements. The glass then becomes a one-way astral travel warning. Step further, and you won't just see the astral plane secrets, you'll be consumed by them. What's more unsettling is how quickly the ritual can turn. One moment, the seeker feels calm, hypnotized by the candlelight dancing on the mirror's edge. The next, they hear whispers not from outside, but from inside the glass. It's as if the mirror itself begins to speak. That's the telltale sign of a ritual gone wrong. The mirror gateway has inverted, no longer reflecting but projecting. In these moments, experienced practitioners use protective chants, salt circles, or sudden interruption of the ritual. But beginners rarely know these safeguards, and so the trapdoor within the glass becomes a prison, pulling them into contact with astral possession. Examples of this abound in hidden archives. One story tells of a monk who attempted a mirror ritual in a dark monastery chamber. He aligned everything correctly, yet forgot one rule: never let the flame die. When his candle extinguished, the reflection dissolved into blackness, and in that blackness, two glowing eyes appeared. He screamed, but no one heard him. Days later, he was found staring into the glass, unresponsive, his face slack as though drained by the haunted mirror. Was it his soul trapped in an astral plane secret, or had a shadow being stepped out to replace him? That question remains unanswered, echoing like a warning through time. So, what makes this configuration so powerful? It's not the objects themselves, but the way they weave together, amplifying the mirror's latent potential. Candles, silence, timing, solitude, all of them conspire to shift the mirror from furniture into an astral trapdoor. Think of it like a lock. Each piece is a number in a combination. Get it right, and the safe opens. But here, what opens isn't treasure. It's a descent into a forbidden ritual that few truly escape. And yet, the temptation lingers, because behind that glass lies not just danger, but the promise of knowledge no book can teach. Which leaves us with an urgent question. What happens once someone dares to cross that threshold? The greatest mistake seekers make is believing that the mirror is passive. Once the ritual begins, the glass becomes alive. It watches, listens, and above all, consumes. Many practitioners report that the first consequence of crossing alone is a sensation of being drained, as if the mirror itself is drinking their gaze. A haunted mirror doesn't reflect, it absorbs. This is why ancient warnings insisted on protective allies, not because they could stop the mirror portal, but because they could pull the practitioner back if things spiraled into a ritual gone wrong. Alone, the seeker faces astral projection dangers with no safeguard, no anchor, no one to close the astral trapdoor. The stories are eerily consistent. Reflections that move independently, shadows sliding across the glass when the room is still, whispers from inside the mirror that mimic voices of loved ones. These are not illusions. They're astral entities testing the boundaries, pushing their way into the physical realm. When someone attempts a forbidden ritual alone, they become both the key and the lock. The mirror gateway knows this, and it begins to manipulate the mind with occult symbolism, visions, and voices. The danger isn't just seeing shadow beings, it's mistaking them for yourself. Or worse, letting them take your place in the reflection. Once that happens, the line between you and the astral plane's secrets begins to blur. One practitioner once confessed that after attempting the mirror ritual alone, he couldn't trust his reflection for months. He claimed that his reflection blinked when his eyes were open, or smiled when his lips were still. Friends thought he was paranoid, but paranoia doesn't explain why he stopped using mirrors altogether. This is the weight of astral possession. Once you've opened the demonic portal without help, it doesn't close easily. Think of it like opening a door during a storm. Wind, rain, debris rush in, whether you want them or not. The mirror ritual works the same way. Once the glass drinks your gaze, it leaves a residue of shadow beings that follow you long after the candles are out. There's also the matter of voices. Many accounts describe faint whispers during the ritual, almost inaudible, like distant echoes. At first, they're dismissible, just tricks of the mind in silence. But as the haunted mirror deepens its pull, the voices become clearer, sometimes calling the practitioner by name. Alone, with no one to verify the experience, the seeker begins to believe, and belief is the ultimate astral travel warning. Because the moment you acknowledge the voice as real, you give it authority. That's when the ritual gone wrong cements itself, and the astral entities gain more than access, they gain influence. Why, then, do people still risk it? The same reason moths fly into flames. Forbidden knowledge has an allure stronger than reason. People crave mystical rituals that promise insight, even at the cost of danger. Alone, the temptation feels purer, no witnesses, no judgments, only the mirror gateway and the silence of midnight. But that silence quickly becomes deceptive. What begins as a meditative practice turns into a descent. Instead of answers, seekers find shadows instead of wisdom, whispers. The mirror doesn't give without taking, and what it takes is always heavier than expected: energy, sanity, and sometimes identity. Cultural traditions echo this warning. In Slavic folklore, mirrors left uncovered at night were said to invite spirits. In African traditions, certain reflective surfaces were avoided entirely during initiation rites. These weren't quaint beliefs. They were survival codes meant to prevent seekers from stumbling into astral trapdoors alone. Even modern paranormal investigators speak of mirror magic gone wrong, cameras glitching, electronics failing, shadows recorded moving across reflections. And all of them agree on one thing: going alone amplifies the danger. It's not just fear, it's physics of the unseen, where the mirror portal intensifies whatever energy is most vulnerable in the room. The scariest part is that once the mirror has tasted solitude, it rarely lets go. Practitioners often describe lingering sensations of being watched, nightmares of shadow beings, or a sense of double vision in waking life. It's as though the reflection never closed its eyes, even when they did. That is the true consequence of crossing alone. The haunting doesn't stay in the ritual, it follows into daily life. And if one mirror can do this, imagine what lies on the other side of the trapdoor. What entities are waiting, patient and hungry, for the next seeker reckless enough to look? Once the mirror gateway opens, the question is no longer if something is there, but who is waiting. Practitioners describe the first encounters as subtle, a shift in the reflection, a shadow lingering where none should be. But as the ritual deepens, astral entities step forward, drawn by the forbidden ritual like moths to a flame. These beings aren't random visitors, they seem to carry intention. Some feed on desire, others on fear, and many on the vulnerability of being alone. The haunted mirror becomes less a tool of self-exploration and more a stage where shadow beings perform their sinister scripts. Each appearance feels calculated, as though the astral trapdoor opens onto an audience that has been watching for centuries. One category of these entities is what occult texts call astral parasites. They latch onto practitioners who approach the mirror ritual unprepared. At first, they appear harmless, tiny flickers, strange lights, whispers that seem curious rather than threatening. But over time, their influence grows. The person may feel drained, plagued by nightmares, or haunted by persistent thoughts that aren't their own. This is astral possession in its most insidious form, not a dramatic takeover, but a slow erosion of will. The mirror magic amplifies their reach, allowing them to move between the astral plane secrets and waking life with unnerving ease. It's not about scaring you, it's about wearing you down until you no longer resist. Then there are the guardians, often described as tall, shadowy figures with glowing eyes. Unlike parasites, these beings don't hide their presence. They stand behind the glass as sentinels, silent but oppressive, as if weighing whether the practitioner deserves to cross. Some describe them as judges of occult initiation, testing whether a seeker is ready for forbidden knowledge. Others see them as wardens, ensuring no one escapes the lower astral layers once the trapdoor is opened. Their stare alone can freeze the body, a paralyzing reminder that the mirror portal is less a passage upward and more a descent into spiritual captivity. And yet, some seekers return, convinced these guardians hold keys to deeper truths. One chilling account comes from a modern occultist who swore he saw a figure step out of the mirror. He described its form as humanoid but incomplete, its face shifting like smoke, its hands too long, its voice echoing like a chorus. It didn't attack him outright. Instead, it spoke his name, promising secrets he had long desired. That's how astral entities work. They barter. They tempt with forbidden knowledge in exchange for submission. This is the most dangerous deal of all, for a ritual gone wrong doesn't end with terror, it ends with agreement, and once a pact is made, the haunted mirror never really closes. Not all encounters are terrifying at first glance. Some practitioners report seeing familiar faces, lost relatives, mentors, even their own younger selves. But these are masks, projections designed to lure. The astral plane secrets are never offered directly. They're cloaked in trust. One seeker admitted that the reflection of his late grandmother appeared, smiling warmly. He reached out instinctively, only to feel the mirror ripple like water. That night, his dreams were filled with shadow beings wearing her face, demanding entry. This is why the ancients warned, the mirror portal lies. It uses what you love most to bait you, dragging you into astral projection dangers disguised as comfort. And then there are those entities no one dares describe in detail. Practitioners speak of glimpses, forms too vast to comprehend, presences that fill the entire reflection without shape or name. These are not parasites or guardians, but something older, something tied to the very essence of mirrors themselves. They're said to be the architects of the astral trapdoor, beings who designed the mechanics of reflection as both prison and lure. To encounter them is not to see a monster, it's to confront the unbearable weight of forbidden ritual itself. Most who claim to have seen them never attempt the mirror ritual again. Some never speak at all. But here's the paradox. Despite the dangers, seekers return. The entities beyond aren't just threats. They're teachers, albeit ruthless ones. Their presence confirms that the mirror isn't empty, that beyond the glass lies a structured world with rules, hierarchies, and consequences. Each haunted mirror is a doorway into this realm, guarded yet inviting, terrifying yet irresistible. And while most flee from their first encounter, a few press further, convinced that what waits on the other side holds truths worth any price. Which raises the deeper question, what happens to those who refuse to turn back, who push beyond fear into the next layer of the mirror's trapdoor? History leaves a trail of whispers, fragments of stories about those who dared the mirror ritual and never returned the same, if they returned at all. In Renaissance Europe, secret societies documented cases of practitioners who used polished bronze or obsidian mirrors for mystical rituals. Some accounts speak of scholars who vanished overnight, leaving their studies intact, candles still burning before haunted mirrors that reflected nothing at all. These stories describe ritual gone wrong, where the astral trapdoor didn't open and close cleanly, it swallowed the seeker whole. What's chilling is that their absence was never explained, only attributed to unholy experiments in church records. But between the lines, the truth echoes. They crossed alone, and the reflection became their captor. One famous case revolves around a 16th century alchemist who attempted an occult initiation with a mirror gateway. His apprentices later testified that during the ritual, his reflection stopped moving, even as he continued chanting. Moments later, the reflection smiled, a smile not his own, before vanishing altogether. The man collapsed, unconscious, and when he awoke, his eyes were vacant, as though some astral possession had taken root. For months, he wandered aimlessly, muttering about shadow beings and voices behind the glass. Eventually, he disappeared without a trace. The apprentices insisted he'd been claimed by a demonic portal, a warning etched into their grimoires for future generations. In the 19th century, a spiritualist medium in France gained notoriety for mirror magic seances. She used a massive mirror, draped in black velvet, to contact what she called guides. At first, her predictions astonished audiences, but then reports emerged of unsettling phenomena. Attendees saw their own faces twist in the glass, heard whispers calling their names, and some fainted mid-session. Eventually, during one séance, The medium herself froze, her reflection blinking independently before stepping back into the glass. She screamed, clawing at her skin as if trying to peel something off. After that night, she never performed again. Her diary, found later, contained one final entry. "The trapdoor is open and I cannot close it. Modern stories are no less disturbing." Paranormal researchers investigating haunted houses often encounter mirrors that behave in ways cameras can't explain. Footage shows distortions, shadow beings, even glowing eyes in reflections when the room is empty. In one case, a young investigator attempted a forbidden ritual in front of a mirror at midnight. His colleagues watched in horror as his reflection lagged, then disappeared entirely for nearly 2 minutes. When it returned, his face in the glass was twisted, unrecognizable, while his body shook violently. He survived, but never spoke of what he saw. His only warning: do not look into a mirror if it looks back first. There are also chilling legends of entire families affected. In rural Eastern Europe, villagers told of a mirror that cursed a household for generations. Every heir who performed even a simple mirror ritual, lighting a candle before it, whispering into its surface, met strange fates. Some lost their memory, others their will to live, and a few were found lifeless, their faces twisted into expressions of terror. Locals believed the mirror was a permanent astral trapdoor, a demonic portal tied to entities that fed on bloodlines. Even when the mirror was smashed, shards continued to reflect independently, as if the haunted mirror could not truly be destroyed. Personal diaries also reveal much. A 20th century occultist wrote about attempting a ritual alone in a dimly lit room. He claimed that after an hour, the reflection began speaking in his voice, but with words he never intended. Terrified, he broke the glass, but the voice continued from the fragments, whispering through the cracks. He recorded days of torment, objects moving, dreams filled with astral entities, and a constant feeling of being observed. His final entry ends mid-sentence, with ink spilled across the page. No body was ever found, only the broken mirror sealed in a box, hidden away as though it were radioactive. And yet, despite these terrifying accounts, the allure remains. Every generation has its seekers who believe they'll succeed where others failed, convinced they can control the mirror portal, master the forbidden ritual, and harness its forbidden knowledge. But history shows otherwise. The mirror doesn't bargain fairly, it consumes. And if so many have been lost to its trapdoor, perhaps the true question isn't why they never returned, but what exactly kept them there. Could it be that the entities beyond don't just watch, but claim, ensuring that once you enter, the reflection you left behind is the only trace the world will ever see again? The hidden danger of the mirror ritual isn't always immediate. Sometimes it creeps in slowly, like water seeping into the cracks of stone until the whole structure breaks apart. Prolonged exposure to a haunted mirror doesn't just unsettle the mind, it begins to fracture the astral double itself. This fragmentation of the soul manifests in strange, disorienting ways. Practitioners report waking up with their reflections slightly altered, a face too pale, eyes not quite aligned, a smile appearing without their consent. It's as if the astral trapdoor, once opened, left them split between two realities. They're here, but part of them is still staring back from the glass. Nightmares often follow. These aren't ordinary dreams, but recurring visions of shadow beings whispering through the mirror gateway, demanding attention. Some dream of distorted faces melting like wax, others of rooms filled with reflections that don't match their movements. In mystical rituals, dreams are understood as messages from the astral plane, but these are warnings, not teachings. A ritual gone wrong doesn't just end with fear, it bleeds into sleep, where astral entities continue their work. Imagine never trusting your own dreams, always waking with the sense that a piece of you didn't come back. That's the reality of astral possession through prolonged mirror magic. In waking life, the signs are even more unsettling. Some practitioners describe catching glimpses of movement in mirrors out of the corner of their eye, only to turn and find nothing. Others feel constantly observed, as if the reflection has become independent, a silent doppelganger trapped in the glass. This is more than paranoia. It's the soul's fracture echoing through the senses. The haunted mirror doesn't let go easily. It clings, pulling fragments of the self into its surface. The result is a life haunted not just by shadow beings, but by one's own divided essence. The mirror doesn't just reflect the body, it imprisons the soul piece by piece. Over time, the fragmentation deepens into personality shifts. Practitioners report sudden changes in mood, memory gaps, or feeling like someone else is steering their thoughts. One chilling testimony described writing in a journal, only to look back later and find words he never remembered penning. They were instructions, almost like commands, signed by the other. Here, forbidden knowledge isn't a gift, it's a takeover. Astral entities exploit these fractures, slipping into the gaps left by the weakened soul. This is the true cost of occult initiation through mirrors, not enlightenment, but erosion. The more you stare into the mirror portal, the less of you comes back. Cultural warnings hinted at this fragmentation in symbolic ways. Folklore often speaks of souls shattered or stolen through reflective surfaces. In some traditions, breaking a mirror meant not bad luck, but a literal breaking of the soul's cohesion. 7 years of misfortune wasn't superstition. It was the time it supposedly took for the astral body to re-knit itself. These ancient ideas align eerily well with modern accounts of practitioners who suffer long-term consequences after mirror rituals. It seems humanity always knew. The mirror is a delicate balance, a tool that either reflects wholeness or multiplies fractures until the self dissolves. Practical symptoms also appear. People who've engaged deeply with mirror magic often complain of feeling hollow, as though part of their life force has drained away. They describe looking into their own eyes and not recognizing the person staring back. Doctors might diagnose dissociation, psychologists might call it identity disturbance, but in esoteric terms, it's fragmentation of the soul caused by a ritual gone wrong. It's as if the astral trapdoor remains cracked open, letting pieces of the practitioner leak into the astral plane secrets. What's left is a body going through the motions, while the true self flickers on the other side of the glass. And yet, even in this haunting consequence, there's a deeper layer. Some suggest that the mirror doesn't cause the fracture, it reveals it. Perhaps the reflection shows us the divisions already inside, the wounds we've hidden, the parts of ourselves we've disowned. In this way, the mirror ritual acts like a merciless teacher. It exposes what we're not ready to see, forcing us into confrontation with the forbidden ritual of knowing ourselves fully. But is that confrontation a path to healing or a descent into madness? The line is razor thin, and it leaves us with one pressing question. Why would such a trapdoor exist at all? What if the mirror was never meant to be a danger, but a test? In many traditions, symbols serve as trials, challenges designed to measure not strength of body, but resilience of spirit. The mirror ritual, with all its astral projection dangers, could be seen in the same way. The astral trapdoor isn't simply a demonic portal waiting to consume, it's a symbolic threshold, forcing the seeker to confront what they fear most, themselves. Mirrors embody forbidden knowledge, not because they hide truths, but because they reveal them without mercy. And perhaps that's the real occult initiation, to stand before the mirror gateway and decide whether you're strong enough to meet the reflection that doesn't belong to you. Throughout history, seekers have been drawn to forbidden ritual because of its paradox. The very act that threatens destruction often hides the key to transformation. The haunted mirror, for instance, might appear to shatter the soul, but what if that fragmentation is also an unveiling? In mystical rituals, breaking apart is often the first step toward rebuilding stronger. Shadow beings then become less enemies than teachers, uncomfortable guides showing us the parts of ourselves we deny. The astral plane secrets they reveal aren't gifts from outside. They're echoes of truths buried deep within. In this sense, the mirror trapdoor isn't a prison. It's an initiation chamber. But why disguise truth in such terrifying forms? The answer may lie in occult symbolism itself. Ancient texts often cloaked wisdom in danger, ensuring only those truly prepared would persevere. A mirror gateway full of astral entities weeds out the curious from the committed. To cross requires discipline, courage, and humility, qualities not easily faked. This aligns with philosophies across cultures. The dangerous path is often the authentic one. Ritual gone wrong isn't punishment, it's feedback, a reminder that power without readiness consumes. Just as fire can cook or burn, the mirror's trapdoor either refines the seeker or destroys them. Let's bring it down to something practical. Imagine someone chasing success without self-awareness. They may achieve wealth, but soon feel hollow, directionless. The mirror ritual functions much the same way. Without preparation, seekers are devoured by shadow beings, trapped in illusions of their own making. But with intention, the same haunted mirror can expose the ego's distortions and strip away falsehood. In this light, astral possession isn't simply an invasion. It's a confrontation with the parts of ourselves we've allowed to be ruled by fear and desire. The mirror forces accountability, even if it feels like torment. Philosophically, the mirror can be seen as a paradoxical gift. It reflects both light and shadow, reminding us that every human carries both. The astral trapdoor exists because we need thresholds, places where the choice becomes undeniable. To avoid mirrors is to avoid facing ourselves. To engage them is to risk destruction, yes, but also to risk growth. Forbidden knowledge has always carried this duality. The fruit that nourishes is also the fruit that poisons. What we call astral travel warning might really be an invitation. Proceed carefully, for what you meet is not alien, but profoundly familiar. Even the recurring theme of entities, parasites, guardians, or vast incomprehensible beings may hold symbolic weight. They could represent aspects of consciousness that test us, challenge us, or devour us when we refuse growth. In this way, shadow beings become archetypes, mirrors of the psyche more than external monsters. A haunted mirror is terrifying because it strips the comforting illusion of control. It reveals that what frightens us out there often originates from what we've buried in here. This is the cruel mercy of the mirror gateway. It reflects not what we want, but what we need to see. And so the question remains, why does the trapdoor exist? Perhaps because humanity has always been hungry for forbidden ritual, restless for more than the surface of reality. The mirror is a cosmic test, a reminder that true transformation requires confrontation with shadow. Yet even knowing this, people step into the ritual unprepared, forgetting that the reflection doesn't lie. It reveals, which leads us to the final threshold, where the gaze itself becomes the initiation. What happens when you can no longer look away from the reflection that refuses to blink? Every initiation ends with a choice, but the mirror ritual leaves you with no easy exit. Once the astral trapdoor has opened, the reflection itself becomes the gatekeeper. The seeker quickly realizes that mirrors no longer behave as simple glass. They've become living witnesses, holding pieces of the soul like trophies. To stand before the haunted mirror after a forbidden ritual is to confront the gaze you cannot escape. You may look away, but the sense of being watched never fades. This is the final stage of occult initiation, when the mirror gateway no longer asks questions. It demands answers, revealing truths you've spent a lifetime trying to hide. The gaze is not merely visual. Practitioners often describe it as a weight pressing down on their chest, a vibration thrumming in their bones. It feels as though the mirror itself is looking through them, peeling back layers of identity until nothing remains but raw essence. Shadow beings use this moment to test resolve, appearing faintly behind the reflection, never attacking but never leaving. Their presence is a constant astral travel warning. You cannot unsee what has been seen. The demonic portal isn't about escape, it's about endurance. Can you hold your own reflection, even when it no longer obeys you? Some seekers try to fight the gaze, covering mirrors, smashing glass, or avoiding reflections altogether. But this doesn't solve the problem. It amplifies it. Mirrors, once awakened through mystical rituals, seem to linger even in absence. Shards reflect independently, windows begin to feel alive, even water becomes suspect. This is why elders warned that a ritual gone wrong doesn't end when the candles are blown out. The reflection follows. It waits in every polished surface, every chance glance, a reminder that the gaze is eternal. This is not punishment, it's consequence, and it forces the seeker to realize that true escape is impossible. Integration is the only path. One chilling testimony described a man who, after weeks of practicing mirror magic, found that his reflection no longer blinked at all. For hours, he would test it, opening and closing his eyes, only to watch the figure in the glass remain motionless, staring into him with predatory patience. He swore the reflection began to smile independently, lips curling into a grin that he couldn't match. That's when he understood. The haunted mirror had claimed part of him, and now it was teaching him something unspeakable. The gaze wasn't his enemy. It was his initiation. Forbidden knowledge doesn't always whisper. Sometimes it stares. Symbolically, this stage represents the moment when the seeker confronts themselves stripped of illusion. The mirror is no longer a portal to other realms, but a relentless teacher, showing that the greatest shadow being is often within. Occult symbolism points here. The final trial of the mirror ritual is not about external demons, but about internal fractures. Astral entities may tempt, haunt, or terrify, but they are only reflections of what already exists. To survive this stage, one must endure the gaze without fleeing, without denying. It's the most brutal of mystical rituals because it removes every mask, leaving only the self in its raw, unfiltered form. Yet the paradox persists. Many who reach this stage emerge transformed. They speak of clarity sharper than any drug, visions that cut through lies like blades. Others, however, never recover, living haunted by reflections that move on their own. The astral possession becomes permanent, the soul fragmented. This duality is the final warning. The mirror gateway offers either awakening or destruction, nothing in between. Every seeker knows the risk, but only those who endure the gaze without breaking find what lies on the other side. And even then, the cost is permanent. The reflection never goes back to being just glass. So when people ask, why attempt such a ritual at all? The answer is simple, because the mirror doesn't lie, it reveals. And in revealing, it offers a choice that life rarely does. See yourself fully or remain forever hidden. The closing initiation is not about defeating demons or escaping astral trapdoors. It is about realizing that mirrors show what you are not ready to face and daring to look anyway. Every mirror hides a gate, but not every soul should step through it. And once you've stood before the reflection that is not yours, you'll never again see your own face the same way. So now you know, the mirror is never just glass. It can be a gateway, a teacher, or a trapdoor into something you may not be ready to face. But the question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you dismiss it as superstition? Or will you dare to look a little deeper the next time your reflection feels wrong? Have you ever stared into a mirror and felt the weight of something watching you back? If so, maybe you've already touched the edge of the forbidden ritual without even realizing it. The truth is, mirrors test us. They reflect not just who we are, but what we hide, and sometimes what hides from us. So let me ask you, are you ready to confront the shadow within, or will you keep pretending the mirror only shows the surface? Share your thoughts, your stories, your fears, your experiences down in the comments. You might be surprised how many others have felt the same. And if this exploration of the mirror ritual that opens an astral trapdoor, never try this alone, shook something inside you, don't walk away from it. Embrace the curiosity, but do it safely. Because this is only one fragment of the hidden world waiting to be revealed. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and stay with me on this journey into the unseen. The next reflection you face might not just be your own, and you won't want to miss what comes after.